Good afternoon, class. The following is an industry analysis from the perspective of recording companies during the physical CD era. This time period was in the 90s to the very early 2000s, and I was actually around during that time, and I remember trying to get the music very similar to the case study that we examined this week between Apple and the music industry. Using Michael Porter's 5 forces model, I will outline why this industry was, at the time, profitable and attractive to enter. So before we dive into the 5 forces, I want to draw your attention to Exhibit 1 on the screen. Highlighted in yellow is the revenue in billions of dollars of physical music. And although there is a consistent declination in revenue each year, as a recording company in the early 2000s, physical copies were really the only legitimate way to get your music out to listeners unless you were popular enough to get played on the radio or on MTV. With this knowledge in hand, let's dive into the 5 forces and either their strength or weaknesses against the recording industry's profits. First, the threat of new entrants. This is basically how easy is it to sell music in other forms like cassette tapes and DVDs, and also non-physical like radio or on MTV. During this era, the case study reveals that half of all Americans purchase recorded music in the form of CDs at least once a year. Now, that being said, factors like the barriers to entry posed a challenge, as there were 4 major record labels that dominated the industry during that time. They were Sony, Warner, Universal Music Group, and also EMI. Thus, the threat of new entrants is not a strong factor. Next, the bargaining power of suppliers. This is basically how much leverage do the recording companies have on the CD market. This includes individual artists, breaking singers, big name recording companies, and the answer in this case is a lot. Without the artists to supply the music, the CDs become useless. Although illegal streaming services and piracy of burnt CDs quickly began to emerge, selling CDs in stores was again the most reliable method to selling your music in a legitimate way. This means that the bargaining power of suppliers is very strong and therefore working in favor of the industry profits. Next, the bargaining power of buyers. How much are people willing to spend to pay for your music? Music needs listeners, but listeners need to be willing to pay for an entire CD. In the era of physical music, consumers were forced to buy an entire CD album versus only purchasing 1 or 2 songs. The average cost of a CD was around $15, but that didn't stop people from purchasing them, and therefore the bargaining power of buyers is a neutral force. Next, the threat of substitute products. How easy is it for someone to otherwise get your music? Truthfully, during the physical era of CDs, it was a challenge to legally get music anywhere else. Illegally, it was quite easy to duplicate CDs at home with a computer and CD burners, but in terms of on-demand music, it really couldn't get much easier than going to Walmart to buy your favorite band's CD. Otherwise, you really just had to wait and hope that your favorite song came on the radio or on MTV. Therefore, in this case, the threat of substitute products during this era was low, but eventually this grew into the strongest threat to the recording industry, which I will explore in the video to follow. And lastly, the intensity of rivalry. How bad do people want your CDs? Initially, people wanted CDs so they could listen to their favorite artists at their convenience, but streaming soon took over and took the music industry by storm. Thus, intensity of rivalry between streaming services became the strongest force that acted against potential profits in this industry. So, in summary, as a recording company during the physical music era of CDs, the overall forces were slightly in favor of entering this industry with the intent to be successful and make a profit. I really look forward to your thoughts and any feedback or disagreements with my analysis that you might have this week. Thank you.